And the official looks at both Thomas and myself and says, "Great job, but you guys tied. And we only have one trophy, therefore we're giving this trophy to Leah." To which this wasn't a script they had prepared for him. And he actually appreciated his honesty. He did say, "We have to give the trophy for Leah because Leah has to have it for pictures." They've made that clear. Leah has to have the trophy for pictures.
In your experience, is there a difference between women and men?
Of course.
Ms. Robinson, do you agree with Ms. Gaines that there's a difference between women and men?
If the question is about trans women,
I'm just asking, is there a difference between women and men?
what I can say is that the NCAA has rules in place. They've had rules in place for the last decade, and when this competition happened,
I'm going to try again.
the rules were clear.
Do you believe there's a difference between women and men? It's a yes/no question. Do you believe there's a difference?
Oh, I think that we're talking about this case with the NCAA.
No, I'm asking a question. Do you believe there's a difference between women and men? Most people could answer this very simply.
Thank you for tuning in to MAGA Capital, where we bring you the hottest and most important topics that the mainstream media refuses to cover. Before we dive into today's video, make sure you hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss a video. Together, we'll fight to preserve our American values, stand up for truth, and protect the rights of our daughters and women everywhere. Today, we're tackling an issue that should outrage every parent, every athlete, and every American who believes in fairness and equality: the radical left's relentless assault on women's sports. The transcript we're discussing today highlights a Senate hearing where brave voices, like that of Riley Gaines, stood up to defend the integrity of women's sports, a fundamental aspect of Title IX that has empowered generations of women and girls to excel on the field, in the pool, and in life. Let me tell you something, patriots. Title IX was a monumental civil rights law that opened the doors for women and girls across this great nation to compete in sports. It wasn't just about sports, it was about equality, empowerment, and opportunity. But now, the radical left, in their never-ending quest to pander to the woke mob, is trampling on the very foundation of Title IX and destroying everything it stood for. Riley Gaines, a champion swimmer from the University of Kentucky, shared a story that every American should hear. She competed against a biological male, Lia Thomas, in the NCAA Women's Swimming Championships. Despite tying in the 200-meter freestyle, Riley was told, "We only have one trophy, and we're giving it to Lia." Why? Because Lia needed it for a photo op. Let that sink in, folks. A biological male was prioritized over a woman who had worked her entire life to get to that podium. What message does it send to our daughters? That their hard work, dedication, and achievements mean nothing in the face of political correctness? That their opportunities can be taken away and handed to someone else just to satisfy the woke crowd? This is not fairness. This is not equality. This is an insult to every girl and woman who has ever dared to dream and compete. Let's watch the full Senate hearing, and I'll be giving my full response and reaction afterwards.
Bruce? Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Title IX was a landmark civil rights law. It helped create the incredible breadth of women's sports and girls' sports that we see across the country. I believe in girls' sports. I believe in women's sports. I'm the proud father of two daughters who are both athletes. I think participating in competitive sports is a wonderful thing for a young girl. I think it is a wonderful thing for a woman. And I think, unfortunately, today's Democrat Party has decided that women's sports and girls' sports no longer matters. And they're willing to push radical legislation designed to destroy girls' sports and women's sports. Ms. Gaines, I want to thank you for your courage. You are relatively young, but you have demonstrated incredible courage. And because you have dared to speak up, you have been demonized, you have been vilified. I saw when you were attacked by a leftist mob at San Francisco State University for daring to speak up. You had an incredible record as a swimmer at the University of Kentucky. You were a two-time NCAA All-American. You were a five-time SEC champion. You're an SEC record holder and a two-time Olympic trial qualifier. But yet on March 27th, 2022, something changed. What happened on March 17th, 2022?
That's when Thomas and I raced in the 200 freestyle and again resulted in a tie.
And so you tied. What was the consequence of tying?
We went behind the awards podium where typically you're handed your trophy, you're marched out, you're named an All-American. And so we go back there and the official looks at both Thomas and myself and says, great job, but you guys tied. And we only have one trophy, therefore we're giving this trophy to Leah. And I question this and I say, why? And at first I shortened it in my testimony, but really he stumbled on his words. He didn't know how to answer this. And at first he's, well, we're just doing this in chronological order. To which I further pressed and I said, okay, well, what are you being chronological about? Because we tied. And if we're doing this off alphabetical order, G comes before T. So what are you being chronological about? To which this wasn't a script they had prepared for him. And he actually appreciated his honesty. He did say, we have to give the trophy for Leah because Leah has to have it for pictures. They've made that clear. Leah has to have the trophy for pictures. You can pose with this trophy, but you have to give yours back. You have to go home empty-handed. Leah Thomas takes the trophy home. End of story.
Now, let me ask you, as someone who's competed at the elite level, in your experience, is there a difference between women and men?
Of course. I think we learned this at a very young age, watching even 12 and unders play. Going through puberty causes irreversible advantage, that no matter the training, no matter the diet, no matter any alterable change you can make, will overcome that male advantage. Especially in sports like swimming, where lung capacity matters so much. Even something as silly as throat size, men have on average a 40% larger throat, which sounds like it's nothing, but when you're grasping for air, that 40% larger throat makes a huge difference in athletic success, not to mention height. You guys know the differences.
Ms. Robinson, do you agree with Ms. Gaines that there's a difference between women and men?
If the question is about trans women,
I'm just asking, is there a difference between women and men?
what I can say here is that the NCAA has rules in place. They've had rules in place for the last decade, and when this competition
Okay, I'm
happened,
going to try again.
the rules were clear.
Do you believe there's a difference between women and men? It's a yes/no question. Do you believe there's a difference?
Oh, I think that we're talking about this case with the NCAA.
No, I'm asking a question. Do you believe there's a difference between women and men? Most people could answer this very simply. I'm curious if you're willing to do so.
Oh, absolutely. I'm just putting it into the context of the
Is that a yes?
conversation that we're having. I think that there are definitions related to sex.
Is
but
that
I
a
also
yes?
think
So I'm
that
trying to
when
get a yes or no. I'm not trying to get a speech.
Is
there a difference between women and men?
I think that there are definitions for biological sex.
Okay, so you're
which
not
is
answering
different
that.
than
Let me
gender.
ask you this question then. Why do women's sports exist? If you can't define a difference between women and men, why not abolish women's sports and just tell little girls to swim with little boys and see who wins?
Oh, I'm simply saying that that sex is
My
different
question,
than gender.
why
and I
do-
believe
why
that
do
women's
women's
sports
sports
have a great
exist?
value. I mean, Senator, I'll tell you right
Ms.
now.
Robinson, please answer the question I'm asking you.
Absolutely.
Why do women's sports exist?
I think that there are so many positive benefits to sports.
But
I mean,
why have a
we've talked
separate
about it here
category for
today.
women? If there's no difference between women and men, why to have women's sports?
I'm saying that there's a difference between sex and gender, and that the NCAA has rules in place, which they have for the last decade.
Mr. Chairman,
which
I would
determine
like
that
to enter into
related
the
to
record an
participation.
article from Duke Law called Comparing Athletic Performances for the Best Elite Women to Boys and Men. And it goes through examining in 2017 the top records for women in the world in various track and field events. So, for example, in the 100 meter, the top record for women in the world was 10.71 seconds. Now, that record for the number one woman in the world in 2017 was, in the year 2017, broken by 124 boys under 18. In that same year, the record for the number one competing woman in the 100-meter dash in the world was broken by a total of 2,474 men. If the radical Democrat agenda to destroy girls' sports and women's sports succeeds, little girls will not have a chance to compete. So I ask unanimous consent that this article be entered into the record.
Without objection. Senator Padilla.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Colleagues, a recent
Riley Gaines, despite being vilified and attacked by radical leftist mobs, has shown incredible courage. She has spoken out against this lunacy, even after being physically attacked at San Francisco State University for simply telling the truth. Her story is proof that the left doesn't want dialogue. They want compliance. They want to silence anyone who dares to challenge their narrative. Let's talk facts. The biological differences between men and women are undeniable. Men have larger lung capacities, greater muscle mass, and other physical advantages that cannot be erased by hormones or surgery. These differences are why we have separate sports categories for men and women in the first place. Without them, women's sports would cease to exist. And yet, when Riley was asked to hand over her trophy to Lia Thomas, it wasn't because of performance or fairness. It was because Leon needed it for pictures. This isn't about inclusion or equality. It's about erasing women's achievements to cater to a small but loud group of activists. During the hearing, a witness named Miss Robinson refused to even acknowledge the basic truth that there are biological differences between men and women. When asked why women's sports exist, she couldn't give a straight answer. Instead, she danced around the question, citing NCAA rules and trying to blur the lines between sex and gender. But let me tell you, patriots, the truth is simple. Women's sports exist because women deserve a level playing field. Now, here's a statistic that should shock you. In 2017, the fastest woman in the world in the 100-meter dash ran it in 10.71 seconds. That same year, 124 boys under the age of 18 ran faster. Let me repeat that. 124 boys outperformed the fastest woman in the world. And yet, the left wants us to believe that there are no biological differences between men and women. Give me a break. If the Democrats succeed in their radical agenda, little girls will no longer have a chance to compete. They'll be forced to race against biological males, and all the progress we've made under Title IX will be wiped away. This isn't just about sports. It's about the future of our daughters and their right to pursue their dreams without unfair obstacles. So what can we do? First, we need to support brave voices like Riley Gaines who are willing to stand up and speak the truth. Second, we need to hold our lawmakers accountable. Let them know that you won't stand for the destruction of women's sports. And finally, we need to keep spreading the truth. Share this video with your friends, family, and anyone who cares about fairness and equality. The left wants us to stay silent. They want us to comply. But here at MAGA Capital, we refuse to back down. We will stand up for our daughters, our values, and the truth. So hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications. Let's send a message that we won't be silenced. Thank you for watching, and remember, together, we can make America great again.